Hey everybody, how's it going? I got with me today Mark Seekins. Mark fought in the Vietnam War between 69 and 70. He was in A Company, 7th Engineers Battalion, 5th Infantry Division. Good morning, Mark. How you doing today?
I'm doing splendid.
Also, I've got with me my new co-host, best friend, and lifelong buddy, Mark Hogan. Morning, Mark. So how's it going?
I'm going really good.
All right.
Appreciate you letting me jump on in here.
Fantastic. Okay, well, this is the second part of our Vietnam War series. And, I kind of take this stuff seriously. I think Vietnam was a tough deal for guys that were in country and maybe even a lot of people that weren't. So it's interesting always to come in here and get these guys' stories. Now, Mark was a minesweeper, and I can't even imagine what life would be like in that situation. So what I'd like to do, Mark, is kind of bring it through chronologically. So were you drafted or did you join?
I joined. I was an RA all the way.
Okay.
Actually, what occurred was, I was given the choice pretty much of 3 to 5 or 3 for sure. Stars or bars, boy. And so I opted for the stars and went in the Army. And, of course, part of the deal was you had to go into combat arms and pretty much volunteer to go to Vietnam, which was pretty much back then the government's way of getting rid of the detritus that they did not want.
Right.
Pretty much. So, went in RA all the way thinking I would get better options, and that wasn't too bad of a choice really at the time for me. I was a full-fledged hippie in California, flower power, going to staging student walkouts and walking in demonstrations for equal rights and stuff, and having been fairly educated in a good school back then and been around the world a lot as a military brat, I thought, well, I can go into this fairly objectively, I'll do my duty. I had been raised by a World War II hero to fully expect to go in the military. So, this is what I will do. I had been well trained as a child.
How old were you when you joined up?
I was 17 and a half.
Wow, right away.
Just a pup.
Yeah, I had to, the choice was, my mother had to sign because they were willing to just put me in juvenile hall or ward of the state or go in the Army, one way or the other. Too much for my mom to handle. My dad had died when I was 13. And, of course, the military denied it, but he had a brain tumor the size of your hand from exposure to nukes. He had written field reports at Hiroshima. He had flown around in B-52s full of nukes, had been at Area 51 doing research. God knows what he was exposed to. But, brain tumor the size of your hand after they autopsy him inside the skull.
Wow. That's crazy.
Anyway,
so when you joined up, go to boot camp, where'd you do boot camp at?
I went to Fort Lewis, Washington. Most people on the West Coast did in the Army.
Yeah.
And where it rains every day. And went from there to Fort Lost in the Woods, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, and for Army engineer training. And I had pretty fair education. I had high test scores, and they wanted me to go to OCS. And I did not want to go. I was afraid I would be a strack troop like my dad, and I knew that in Vietnam, people like that got shot in the back of the head quite often. And I did not want to be that kind of person. So I said, no, I'm not going to be an officer. I'm going to stay in enlistment. And they tried to get me to go to shake and bake school. No. But I did take a leadership class, a couple of weeks at Fort Leonard Wood, where mostly you took apart every weapon you had over and over again, and everything they could make you do in 2 weeks to get you a little step ahead of the other engineers that you would train with. And,
what's shake and bake school?
Instant NCO school. You go 8 weeks school and you're a sergeant.
Wow. Okay.
And so they wanted me to go to that. I did not want to. One of the things I knew about the military early on was you really didn't want to attract attention to yourself. This would usually unfortunate things happen.
Better to blend in.
Yeah, be invisible. That will remind me of one of my favorite stories about going through the AFES in Oakland. I received my first promotion to E2 before I got out of the building. And it was because of the military preparation I had had as a child. And after being processed through, they took 30 or 40 of us to a room that was full of dirty sheets. And the old sergeant said, "I need someone here with prior military experience," which I looked away the other direction. He's flipping through papers, and he said, "Oh, Private Seekins, Civil Air Patrol. Get on over here. How come you didn't say you had military experience?" "Because I have military experience." No. He said, "Private, you're in charge of this room. This detail consists, you will count all these sheets. They will be placed in bundles of 20, 19 loose sheets, 20 a sheet being the outside wrapper. In the event there will not be 20 sheets in a bundle, you will identify it with this tag, and you will write down the number of sheets, including the outside wrapper sheet, on this tag. When you're done, Private." "Yes, Sergeant." He takes off. I turn around, I tell everybody in the room, and I'm the youngest guy there. Everybody there got a couple of years of college, kids, something, I said, "Hey, guys, look, everybody here is going to count everything 3 times. When we're done, we're going to sleep." So everybody does. They go along with me. We count everything 3 times. Everybody is satisfied. There's 20 sheets in every bundle, except this one's got 16. Everybody sacks out. Well, a couple hours later, Sergeant shows back up. "Attention!" Everybody jumps up. "Private Seekins, front and center." "Yes, Sergeant." "Are there 20 sheets in every bundle here?" "Yes, Sergeant, every bundle except this one. This has 16. "Private, will you bet your life on that?" "Yes, Sergeant." "You're an E2. Take these men to Fort Lewis." And that was the beginning of great misfortune because, of course, they put notes on your file. And when that bus pulls into Fort Lewis, Washington, that sergeant picks up that box of files, and he sees that note. I think it was about 10 minutes later I was doing close order drill with a footlocker instead of a rifle. So it didn't take long, to find out that they were going to ride my ass.
Yeah.
"Take note, this guy's on his way, ride him hard," which is what makes you live.
Sure.
And I will acknowledge at this point Sergeant Mac Teague, drill sergeant at Fort Lewis, Washington. Doubt if he's still kicking, but if any of his family is, tip of the hat. I'm probably alive today because Sergeant Mac Teague rode my ass and rode my ass. I fell asleep standing up and woke up with him in my face. And I'm alive today probably because of that. So thank you, Sergeant Mac Teague.
There you go.
Okay,
so you get out of boot camp, and I guess you go fly straight into Nam?
No, boot camp. I fly to Fort Lost in the Woods, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, engineer training, LPC school, and then off to Karlsruhe, Germany, and Rhineland-Kaserne, which in Ettlingen, Germany, outside of Karlsruhe, had formerly been an officers' POW camp.
Wow.
The old buildings, and they were old Nazi German buildings, And, it was entertaining. Did a lot of training. The school there was the ADM school, which I had a little outskirts training on. I didn't directly go to the final schools. I just had some of the preparatory classes, but it was ADM, Atomic Demolitions and Munitions. And underground there at that facility, they taught people how to disarm nuclear warheads.
Damn.
And that was their job there. Of course, probably, it's probably all declassified now.
Yeah.
But back then, it was, you went in an elevator underground, and MPs checking you every couple of seconds to make sure that was you. So it was pretty secret, I guess.
Cool.
So, I found that my brother was in the Air Force and was going to get flight medic training. And my brother is a very gentle person, very religious, an excellent gunsmith, but he's not an aggressive person, and I don't think he would pull the trigger at anything but a paper target. So I went down to the re-up sergeant and said, excuse me, send me over there. All I want is make sure my brother don't go. And, okay, see you later. You're on your way, dude. And off I went on the way to Vietnam. I had, some leave time in California about a month before I went.
Right.
And, that was all lots of fun.
So you land in Nam.
Oh.
And then how long is it before you're actually out sweeping for mines? And
10 days.
Really? Man. That's not really a whole lot of time to acclimate, is it?
Oh, no. Can I back up a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
To me, some of the most interesting stuff is the journey. And, like I say, I felt that I was going to go into this with an objective state of mind, and feeling I have a little sense of humor, I decided that it was appropriate to go with one of my very best friends, a guy named Howard Carney, who ended up in the Marines, no longer with us. Made it back, but no longer with us. We went dove hunting out in California, town of Folsom. Went out and shot 3 doves and ate them for lunch. And I thought, boy, this is it, man. I killed the dove. I ate the dove. I'm going to come back from Vietnam in one piece. This is it, man. I'm going to make it. I get to San Francisco Airport later that afternoon, and I bump into 2 engineers in uniform, and we decide to group together. And we end up, a week later, we are in the same platoon. We all end up we are replacements for people who've been shot up or blown up. The 3 of us got on the same plane together going there, and we all 3 got on the same plane coming back. And I'm glad I ate the 3 doves.
Oh, that's cool.
They all made it.
To me, that, it was very symbolic at the time, and by golly, it proved fruition.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was part of it. Going out doing that dove hunt and then running into Scotty and Dave. And we were partners the whole time we were there, close-knit as could be, And many adventures were centered around those 2 fellows.
Oh, I bet.
In particular, Scotty.
So you made the flight back a lot wiser.
Oh, yes.
Than when you left.
Oh. All right, so we meet up. None of us had ever seen an M16. We had all trained on the M14. So they trot us out to the range and give us 10 rounds and pop, 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 pop with this little piece of plastic, which terrified all of us, because it didn't feel like it was anything. And it shot differently, and we were very uncomfortable with it. It had a tendency to get stuck, and you knew you could pretty well end up fucked with this thing,
Yeah.
And so we were rather apprehensive about that. Well, flight over, and I got to say, like I say, I was a young hippie at the time. Half of us at that time, we were all potheads. Every time we could, we were getting high. As we were in line, getting ready to board our plane up there at SeaTac, I jumped off the side behind a dumpster and rolled up a joint in a juicy fruit gum wrapper. And we smoked that joint in line getting on the plane. And I was juicy fruit gum wrapper, and
Reminds me of the strawberry easy widers. Remember those?
Oh, eventually, got into
with the
those.
wire in them so you can hang on, right?
That's it. Yeah.
Anyway, so we do this flight, and I mean, there had to have been 20 or 30 people on that plane who had done acid on the way over there, knowing it was a 27-hour flight and I'd be down again. But here's my last chance. Fuck it, And but one of the big moments, and I think the moment where I grew up the most suddenly, was stepping off the plane. My first step onto the stairs coming down from there, I look over to the side of the runway down there in Cameron Bay, and there's these 2 big old billboards. And one of them says Brown and Root, and the other says Mobil Oil. And as barely 18-year-old kid, I turned to these 2 guys beside me. I said, damn, we're here so someone else can count the money.
This war is sponsored by Brown and Root.
Yeah, that's it.
They had civilian contracts, so, shoot, So at 18, I understood the whole deal behind war. We're here so someone else can count the money. period.
Yeah. Eisenhower actually warned about that in the 50s.
Oh, yes. I was fully aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly, what Trump blew up. That was the biggest thing he did was to blow that up again. Because they were running the show.
Status quo. They don't like to be messed with.
Oh, man, they don't like to. No one likes anyone to take anything out of their rice bowl.
Right.
They want that meat and veggies on that pile of rice in there.
So when you land in Da Nang, from my limited knowledge, Da Nang was the embarkation in deep.
That was mostly for Marines. I was Army. We came into Cam Ranh Bay.
Oh, okay.
And that was interesting itself. I mentioned we had smoked a joint getting on the plane. We get off the plane. We're down at LBJ. It's a huge place. And they run us over to a mess hall to eat before running us through the replacement depot. And the first thing, and of course all the engineers started gathering up together, And so there were probably a clump of about 7 or 8 of us that all had engineer castles on. And one of the guys, I think it was a guy we nicknamed Weirdo, named Kylie from, I think, Oregon or something. He saw someone he knew. And I go, oh, yeah, come sit with us. And under the table passes, man, welcome to Vietnam, guys, here. And under the table passes us 2 of what he called Bong Song Valley bombers. So I was off the plane 15 minutes, and we already scored weed. Hey, man, that place is all right, So
they should have put a zigzag billboard up there, too.
Yeah. So we eat, and we go off, and there's these old barracks, typical Army barracks, 2-story fire escape on the end, and we're sitting out there. We got this joint the size of a Tampa Jewel, big old thing, and we're toking away on it, and I start laughing, and I fall off the porch into the sand, and I'm laughing my ass off, and the guys are looking at it. You all right? You all right? I said, and they made me come here. It was the best weed I ever smoked in my life. It was even better than the hash in Germany. Oh, man, this is great. Then we got our assignments.
Okay, that's the part I want to
That's where it gets, the real shit sets in. We're informed, yep, you're going to 5th Mech, A Company, 7th Engineers, this group of guys. And plane's coming in 20 minutes. Line up over here on the side of the runway with your gear. Well, in comes this old beat up, I think old C-47 or something, OD, and it's trailing smoke. And as it lands and goes by us, there's a hole in the tail the size of a basketball. We're just going, oh, shit, that's our flight? Oh, crap. And the next minute comes an announcement over the PA, oh, flight so-and-so to Da Nang and Quan Tri will be delayed for about 45 minutes for maintenance. Yeah, right. So we started getting a little pucker factor, There you go, oh, crap. So we're wandering around there waiting out our time for the announcement again, and there's this big plywood sign, map of Vietnam. And we're looking for Quan Tri. And we know that's where we're going. And we can't find it. We're looking all over this map. And people are, well, it's up north. And we're looking, and cities on the map ended at Way and Phu Bai. It didn't show anything past that. We're looking, and finally a couple of Marines come up. Some guy poses for his picture. And they said, what are you guys looking for? Quan Tri. And he just starts laughing. And he said, hey, they're going to Quan Tri. And I go, good luck, guys. That's up there. And he shows us that it's past anything on the map. So we go, oh, man, this is not looking good, guys.
Closer to the enemy.
Yeah. Well, man, we're not even on the fucking map. Oh, crap. So sure enough, here comes the announcement. All right, guys, load up. So we get in this plane, and it goes up to Da Nang. And they drop off a couple of people and a bunch of supplies. Takes off again. We don't get out or anything. And it heads for Quan Tri. And as we're flying over Quan Tri, guy comes back out of the cabin and says, hey, we can't land here. They're taking fire. Look out the window. And we look down, there's tracers going everywhere. Oh, fuck, we ain't got guns yet, Oh, shit, So Guy comes and said, well, we're not going to land here. We're going to go up and try Dong Ha, which is even further north. We're going, oh, shit. So we go up to Dong Ha, and the guy comes back out. Hey, we can't land here either. They're taking worse fire than they were at Quan Tree, but they say it's about ended at Quan Tree, so we're going back. We're feeling a little apprehensive, this time, we're starting to make our approach to Quan Tree, and the guy comes back out of the cabin, and of course it's loud in there, a little cargo plane.
Yeah.
He hollers at us, come over the window. And he points out there, he says, you see those humps? Those are bunkers. He said, when you get out of the plane, run for them. What do you mean? He says, yeah, we're just going to lower the back. He said, you throw your bags out, and we'll slow down, and you just get out and run for those bunkers. Shit. It slows down to a pretty fast walk. We throw our bags out and we haul ass. Don't forget the zigzag. All this shit. We're scared shitless.
Welcome to Quan Tree.
Yeah, and there's these bunkers that are built up of 2 rows of 55-gallon drums with half culvert over the top, piled high with sandbags, and a blocking wall at either end, so you can get in and out. So we dive off into this bunker. Scared shitless. Crack, daylight, just beginning to get daylight. We can see each other a little bit. And about time where we can, eyes are adjusted in there, realize it stinks. That's where everybody goes to pee. Jokingly, I said, well, smells like piss. Somebody already pissed their pants. Is that what they're talking about, the smell of fear? And about the time I say this, we are overwhelmed with the smell of marijuana smoke. Blows through there. And here's some tall, skinny guy leaning up there on the end wall smoking the joint. Says, welcome to Vietnam. Come with me. We're scared shitless. And this guy's walking along smoking a joint like a day nobody's business. So what? Okay. We'll send someone out to get your bags. Don't worry. Which means that opportunity for someone to go through your shit.
Right.
And anyway, so eventually they run us over to a replacement depot, and we get our assignments that we're going to go to A Company 7th Engineers. And while at the replacement depot, they take all the guys who've never seen the M16 before and stuff, and they say, we're going to give you an orientation walk, and you go out and you do this mock patrol. It's inside the perimeter in a wooded area, and they throw out a smoke grenade or two, and they come up and tag it. Oh, you're dead, you're dead, you're dead, okay, And anyway, we get back to replacement depot. Having had my duffel bag lay on the ground for maybe 3 hours was enough time for a centipede the size of my arm to crawl in it. They were everywhere, So anyway, so we get in a truck, and they drop us off at A Company 7th Engineers. And we're just informed, okay, drop your bags here. Here's your hooch. Get in the back of this 3/4 ton truck. You're on your way to Contien. We need minesweepers. Oh, well, they didn't tell us. A couple of guys before us had been, messed up from minesweeping.
Right.
We were replacements. Well, at that time, the Army was just taking over from the Marines. And they sent us up to Alpha 4, Contien, the Hill of Angels, the end of the line. There were no bases anywhere in Vietnam north of Contien. There were night defensive positions and places where, but there were no permanent fortifications of any kind north of that. Quai Son was south and west of us. And when the Marines at Quai Son went through all their deal and they had the news reporters there, the only reason they didn't have Contien on there was they couldn't get any news reporters in. We didn't have a runway. We had a helipad,
We were right up against the DMZ. No kidding.
Our barbed wire ended in the pink. We were in, as you see, there was kind of a little hump in the DMZ. We were in that hump. Parts of the DMZ were south of us, And our job, it was a nice big saddle hilltop, and it looking to the east, it was straight down the McNamara line, where they had bulldozed and plowed about 600 yards wide from Contian to the ocean. And it was as clear as could be, and every listening and counter-mortar, radar, everything they could operate, observation towers. We considered ourselves all along the watchtower was our theme. On the beach, they had big high towers. We had telescopes and starlight scopes. You could see enemy soldiers in North Vietnam standing in the chow line.
Wow.
And, at Contian, we'd anywhere from 900 to maximum 1,400. I mean, that was really crowded if we got that many up there. But 3 miles away was an NVA base with 12,000.
Wow.
Basically, our job, as described by a very crusty old brown shoe sergeant from West by God, Virginia, he took us up on the hilltop and asked if anybody had good enough eyes to see that little red dot up there to the north. Well, I'm pretty farsighted. I could see that little red dot. He said, that's the enemy base camp. Go up on the hill, look at it through the telescope if you want. And so we knew we were right there. And he explained that basically our job was to tell the people at Charlie 2 Fire Base, the engineers there, to go blow up the bridge over the Qua Viet River to slow down the Vietnamese. Being in the fine print at the bottom means we weren't supposed to get there. We were supposed to say, they're coming, and slow them down. And in theory, we were supposed to cross the bridge before it got blown up.
Yeah.
In theory. Yeah.
Well, let me jump ahead a little bit.
Please do.
I want to get into
here.
I want to get into minesweeping because I don't know anything about it. So, how many minesweepers generally were in a platoon, or at least in your platoon, and how was the decision made who would go out on point?
Well, we weren't organized as a platoon. Minesweep teams were divided out from the rest of the company and kind of sublet out to the different fire bases.
Okay.
We would have a squad at each fire base. And, we were miles from our company area and chain of command, we were kind of independent on our own. We'd scavenge food and stuff where we could because we were the end of the supply line. So you got assigned to a minesweeping team because you'd been trained in certain things and you were supposed to be able to do that.
Right.
And you'd go out and do it, and they'd watch you do it. And if you were good at it, you're the minesweeper, and I'm pretty good at it. Also, more than the mine detector, I'd been in the woods a lot, and I could read trail. I'd see footprints, broken twigs, all the time. That was what found everything for me. I never found anything with the metal detector other than tin cans. That was it. I found a plastic mine because I could see it. I could see where they had buried it. But anyway, they would divide us up in these groups, and they'd send us out to different fire bases. And when you went out, we generally had a personnel carrier for the squad, a sergeant, a junior sergeant or acting sergeant or something, the senior E4, and a couple of minesweepers. And basically, you had a driver for the track, and a squad leader sitting behind a 50 caliber machine gun, and they'd trail you about 150, 200 yards behind you. And you'd have a sweeper and a drag man, the guy behind you walking security for you, and he got to carry a rifle and yours, and you were out there with a metal detector. And you stayed about a good 5 or 6 paces in front of him. So you were basically walking down one side of the road, then 25 yards behind you would be the guy walking the other side of the road with his partner behind him. So you were spread out pretty good. But mind you, up there along DMZ, you'd see some of the pictures, you thought it looked kind of barren.
Right.
Area of Operations Orange, the northern part of I-Corps, had the most Agent Orange, Agent Purple, and Agent White sprayed on it of any area in Vietnam. You could walk up to a bush and tap it with your fingers and it might disintegrate because it was desiccated, But there wasn't much growing. So you were basically walking down the middle of a football field very slowly, wondering, is somebody looking down their sights at me? Well, it doesn't take very long before you have to come to terms with that. You have to realize, I'm a dead motherfucker. I'm a dead motherfucker. That's it. I'm dead. I'm a target. That's it. And you put that out of your mind. You're dead already. If you're going to do your job, you're already fucking dead. Just fuck that. Get it out of your mind, or you can't do the job. You have to have 100% presence on that. Because if you walk past that mine, somebody behind you is going to turn into a pink cloud. I never wanted to live with that. Did not. So I 190% attention on this, and forget the fact that you're a target.
Yeah.
And a desirable target.
Yeah.
Because you're a minesweeper.
Sure.
Yeah. So, on that note, this little deal right there. People talk about bounties on soldiers these days. That was worth $500 to any dink who could rip it off. And I say the word dink, gooks, call them whatever the hell you want. When you are a soldier, you're going to war. You are not killing human beings. You are killing the enemy. Part of your training, you call them dinks, the enemy, gooks, whatever, because they cannot be human. We all know we aren't supposed to kill humans. Right. We know this. So you make them something else so that you can kill them. I know lots of Vietnamese people. They're wonderful people. Some of the enemy I shot at might have been wonderful people, and I'd be friends with them today. At that point in time, they were dinks. I was damn Yankee GI. Okay, that was the deal.
Yeah.
That's part of war.
It works both ways.
Yeah, it's a two-way street. Yeah. So anyway, that and the little red diamond, that was worth $500. So minesweeper coming out of Contien had $500 to $1,000 bounty on his head. That's
it was a lot of money back then too.
Oh yeah, especially the Vietnamese.
Sure.
Man, that was life fortune. That was like winning the weekly grand. But, we lived with that. That was part of it. So
I know the guy behind you with the rifle watching. But I heard a story where you had your own special weapon.
Yeah, for a while I ran into a situation there. I was pretty scared. I had to do a lot of little minesweeping out in the bush a lot and everything. So, and I was not fond of the M16, but I was very familiar with the M1 and the M2 carbine. And one day, after there'd been a little altercation near a cemetery at Kamlo, popular forces were armed with M1s. And I looked down, and there was an M2 carbine laying there, a couple bandoliers. I snapped it up. And being an engineer, we had tools, so I took the hacksaw to it. And commonly around the area, people called them an Avenger. And they would cut the barrel down at the forestock and cut the buttstock off at the hand grip. And you could take a .45 holster and cut about 3 inches off the bottom of it, put it in the cloth straps of your backpack, your web belt there, and you could stick that carbine back behind you so it did not interfere with your metal detector. And carbines, you could take 3 magazines and tape them together, and you had 90 rounds at your disposal. Well, if you're out in the middle of the road without a blade of grass around you, hide behind, and someone starts to shoot at you, I learned long ago the best way to keep them from getting you was to put so much lead in the air that nobody could put their head up.
Makes
sense.
So
if I had to run and jump, the first thing I did was I blew off 30 rounds as fast as I could in the general direction of where I thought was the enemy, and and then I'd roll around, find a different spot while I was reloading for the next one. And it made me feel fairly secure. I'm still here. It must have worked. Mm-hmm. Maybe it didn't, but here I am. But put that many hunks of lead in the air, everybody's ducking. You might be able to scramble off somewhere where they don't see you. And here's something I'm sure a lot of guys, especially Marines and straight-leg grunts, will know this. When you're out there in that bush, they might be shooting at the guy 10 yards away from you, and they ain't seen you yet, so you're okay. That's one of the nice things about being little. But if they haven't seen you yet, okay.
Yeah.
You're good. So if you can blast off those rounds and duck and scramble and get somewhere where nobody can draw a bead on you, well, then you can sit here and talk shit about it.
There you go. So I know that we had claymores that we used. So did the VC have any manufactured mines that they used, or was everything kind of an IED?
Oh, no. They were well supplied by the Chinese.
Okay.
Almost every grenade thrown in my direction or RPG shot over my head was made in China.
Wow. So what kind of mines did they have then? I mean, what was, I don't want to say popular, but, what
anything
what
they
was
could
normal?
get. They would dig up old U.S. mines and put them out there.
Wow.
Because, Cantien and a lot of the fire bases were surrounded with minefields. As a matter of fact, Cantien Fire Base is famous for this. Had once been much smaller. The French had been there, the Marines had been there, the Army came, and they had expanded the base. Well, there was part of Cantien that had a minefield inside. And, you didn't play there. That was not the place to go play football. And,
right.
But we did, as engineers, we did Shanghai a roll of commo wire and tap into the Marine Corps generator at the command bunker and string it through the minefield down to our engineer bunker so we could run a light bulb. We were highfalutin, we had us a light bulb.
Wow.
When you live underground, by candlelight at best, or old grease stuck into a sea ration can with a piece of rag for a wick.
Lots of rats, I heard.
Oh, God dang. Rats. Like house cats. A friend of mine, of course, they'd build these boxes, dig a hole in the ground, build this big old boxes out of railroad timber and shit, and cover it with a rubber mat, and then pile it high with dirt and sandbags. You had a stairway going down into it. And, of course, after, a certain amount of rats and stuff and people coming unglued, it would get a few holes in the membrane, Mm-hmm. And anyway, so they'd leak. One night, woke up, heard this guy, his name was Kelly. He was cussing and screaming. A damn rat had curled up in his armpit to stay warm and get out of the water. And the water was about a foot deep. He went to get up and put his foot in the water, and the rat scrambled, bit him in the ear. He had to go down and get rabies shots and everything, but, it was just part of the deal, And I remember when I was at C2, we'd been gone about a week doing some damn mission up by the rock pile, I think, and we came back, and Scotty was in front of me, and the next thing I know, he's climbing up my face and over the top of me, coming back over the stairs, freaking out. I think he was the only one in the world more scared of snakes than I was, and there was a big old 12-footer in there. And Scotty said, "I'll take care of that," and so he fragged the bunker, and the Army refused to approve the combat loss for the stereo we had inside that was pulverized. Unauthorized use of a fragmentation grenade.
No Purple Hearts either.
No. But yeah, it was a rough life there. Cantien was mud. There was mud, and about some waist deep mud, and of course some shallow places where it was only knee deep. And of course, there were days when it didn't rain and it was dry, but on days that it rained, you could put a microphone inside of a tin can and hold it up, and you brought it back inside, and your microphone would be wet. Cantien, where it rains inside of tin cans, it is that bad. You couldn't see 30 feet sometimes in the rain. It'd be raining so hard.
So is that pretty much the routine? Your basic Cantien until you're going out for a mission to clear a road?
Well, I spent almost all my time at either Cantien or Charlie 2. And I'd do the mine sweep from Cantien down to Charlie 2 or from Charlie 2 down to Kamlo Village. And mine sweep there ended at the MACV headquarters at QL9. And, that was that was where the pavement started. Pavement would start there, and you were kind of back to the civilized world. You could relax a little bit.
How long would it be if you discover a buried mine, before you could clear that, and were you the one to dig it up and deactivate it?
99.99% of the time, you blow it in place.
Right.
Unless it's obviously Soviet made, which they wanted you to recover that. Because the Soviets occasionally supplied a few things too. I earned a 3-day R&R because I found an anti-tank mine made out of all plastic. The only thing in it metal was the blasting cap. It was made in Russia. Blue plastic, very sophisticated, designed to blow a 9-inch hole through a tank.
Wow.
And,
Did you ever see any mine placements that you thought were just weird? Or
any what placement?
Any mine placements, or just situations that you thought, well, this is just weird.
Well, I'd be
something
walking along
completely
doing
unexpected.
minesweep. I'd see footprints off to the side heading for the road or something. The deal on the plastic mine was I thought I saw a snake trail going across the road and realized it made a circle. And oops, wait a minute, that's wrong. That alerts you to it.
Yeah.
Being savvy to being in the woods. I'd be saying, footprints. What are you talking about? You can't see that. You don't see that. Look at it. There's a tennis shoe print right there in the road. You don't see that. You see a tennis shoe print in the road. You better have your eyes open real quick. There's something wrong because there ain't supposed to be anybody out there.
Right. Well.
Mostly it was a matter of being alert and savvy, and controlling your fear. You're scared shitless.
Yeah.
Unless you're asleep.
So how did y'all decide who was on point? I mean, did you draw straws or what? Maybe that decision was taken away from you by somebody higher up?
Pretty much if you were good at it, you just did it because you didn't want someone who wasn't as good to do it. I don't ever recall having been told I had to. It was just what I did every day because I was good at it. And, you take it, my hand, okay, fine. Because people knew. If I had that metal detector in my hand and I was walking down that road, you could walk behind me. And you didn't have to worry about nothing.
Yeah.
Without paying attention to it. So other people, they might be too scared to do the job right. Whatever. Of course, a hairy job is scary.
Yeah.
I couldn't eat breakfast. You get up in the morning, I got to do that again.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
If at first you don't succeed, minesweeping is not for you.
No.
That's for sure.
No, that's not one of those where you learn from your failures.
Right.
So I guess sniper fire was also a big consideration for minesweepers, huh?
That was the big thing. The first time I got shot at was when I was still with the Marines, with the OJT deal. And we got shot at by some guy out in the woods, a few hundred yards off the road. And we were still in the OJT period, so there was a squad of Marines and a squad of Army. And like I said, I'd only been there about 3 weeks at that time, and I had big learning experience. The Marines did exactly what Marines are trained to do. They advance and fire in teams of 2, assault that gun now. Army did exactly what they were trained to do. They hit the dirt, and they laid still. I don't know how long it was, maybe 2 seconds or 0.2 of a second or 10 seconds. I realized laying there in that dust of the road that I was a stationary target. I better go with those Marines. That looked safer to me, even though they were going towards the fire. They were moving. And laying up there on that road without a blade of grass to be behind, that wasn't for me. I thought I better go with them, which was beneficial in the long run for me.
Yeah.
The Marines adopted me. They gave me my nickname, Hippie Freak, because as a hippie, I was a freak for having been willing to join combat, and that was my nickname the whole time.
Cool.
Over there.
Did you have a lot of friends back home that were really disappointed in you for joining the industrial military complex?
90% of them weren't even aware that such a thing existed. They were out there demonstrating against the war because that was the cool thing to do, and they weren't really thinking about details one way or another. When you mention that, there are three characters in this scene. There's Rodney swinging meat. Rodney has meat. There is Jody. He's the guy back home. And there's Susie Rottencrotch. That's what the drill sergeants refer to the main characters in life as. Rodney swinging meat is that idiot in an OD uniform about to get his ass shot off. Jody's the guy back home. He's chasing little Susie around the parking lot of the Dairy Queen. Susie Rottencrotch, well, she says she's waiting for you. Mm-hmm. She might not be, but those are the three main characters. And old Jody and Susie Rottencrotch, they don't even think about you out there in the jungle. You ain't there.
Right.
And so when you come back on that plane, there's people walking around the airport with skis and tennis rackets, and you're the odd man out. You know, they ain't giving a second thought to you. But then again, had a dear friend in high school, Sally Byram Bennett nowadays. She went around the school and would get people to write notes on binder paper. And I'd get a letter, 2 or 3 sheets of paper with note, hi, from so-and-so, from different classmates. That went on for a few months, but, wore out.
Right.
But that was really splendid. Tip of the hat to her for that. That was really great. But there was moral support. People knew that, you might get drafted. It wasn't your choice. You went to jail if you tried to refuse that. So if you went and did your job, most people generally supported you.
Yeah.
Once in a while you'd have someone get in your face about it. The people who did get in your face were, people with too much time on their hands who had time to be sitting at the airport at 2:30 in the morning in Seattle to curse you and throw dirt clods at you and call you a rapist and a murderer.
Right.
They had time on their hands to be there at 3 in the morning. Pity on their souls, misguided idiots, we were just doing our job. We didn't deserve that. If you wanted to do that, go kick your senator in the ass.
Right.
We weren't making any money off of it. We didn't want to do it.
Right.
We did our job because we felt that was what we should do. And there were times, we objected to our jobs, over there and stuff. I remember getting in deep doo-doo because my girlfriend had sent me a black armband, which in October of '69 at the moratorium, I showed up for minesweep with my black armband. Oh boy. I got my ass chewed thoroughly for that and severely threatened with.
I'll bet.
I said, well, what's worse? I'm already at Contien.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do, I'm already at Contien. It doesn't get much worse. It was often referred to as the barrel, because Contien, you're going to get shot at. And, during the winter of '69, we went through about 2 months of what they declared was under siege, which meant you got incoming every day, several rounds usually. And anyway, so you wouldn't get regular mail. They dropped food and water because they couldn't always drive trucks up and down the road. We couldn't always go minesweep. Too dangerous sometimes. Right. And then sometimes been a week we haven't been able to get down the road, and they build up about 3 or 4 tanks, a couple of personnel carriers, and a couple of twin 40mm dusters, and we'd make an aggressive minesweep to clear it so we could get back and forth and get supplies. Contien was basically just a hill covered with cannons and mortars, every size, 8-inchers, 155s, 105s, 4-inch mortars, everything they had. And like I said, we had anti-aircraft guns.
Did you ever experience, while you were there, full-on assault on your position? Or was it mainly artillery, mortars?
Mostly artillery and mortar. We call, say, full-on assault, I imagine hundreds of guys coming at me. I never saw one of those situations. I was involved. First couple weeks I was there, a huge battle, but I was the extra demo guy, and I sat with a group of about 20 reinforcements and other guys in a pile of C rations, ammo, and Carling Black Label beer. 161 Infantry slugged it out in Cobra Valley with the 27th NVA Regiment. And we thought we killed 1,350 of them, and when General Giap wrote his story about it, turns out we killed 4,000 of them, and they damn near fired Giap over it. They dissolved the 27th Regiment, just sent what was left of them to other units or back home. And he said, like I said, he said we killed 4,000 of them. The location was called on the maps Cobra Valley in General Giap's book, which I read part of. He said they changed the name of it to the Valley of Crying Souls.
Wow.
And like I say, we slugged it out for 3 days. One of my good friends, Pat Madaleno, got wounded there. I sat on, with the extra food and ammo, occasionally a spray of bullets, knock a few leaves down. Quarter-mile away, they were going through hell.
Wow.
So
what'd you think of the South Vietnamese people?
The people?
Mm-hmm.
The people in general, well, they're good people, hard-working folks.
Yeah.
You get out there in a rice paddy and bust up dirt clods with a mallet on a bamboo pole, you're a hard-working son of a gun.
Yeah.
ARVNs, well, yeah, poor bastards were drafted in like us, and they saw what was coming. They knew as soon as we left it was over.
Right.
And, they didn't want to do anything they didn't want to have to.
Were they just poorly outfitted, poorly trained, or what was the deal with the ARVNs?
They had no heart.
Really?
Had no heart.
It seems like they would have. I mean, it's their country.
They knew as soon as we were gone, the commies were just going to roll right over them.
Yeah.
Oh, like they're doing here today. Oh, but they knew, and that's exactly what happened. You've seen the videos, endless line of tanks,
right.
Chinese-made Soviet T-31s rolling down the road, and they knew that's what was going to happen. And if someone could say, "Oh, you helped the Americans," that they would be prison camped and brainwashed.
I've heard a lot of horror stories about the big purge.
Oh, yeah, they killed thousands and thousands of them, Yeah.
Wow.
They knew that was coming, so they didn't want to do anything they didn't have to. Did an operation with the ARVNs. My buddy Scotty, I'll say is one of my proudest moments. You've heard me mention pot plenty of times. We're out with this deal with the ARVNs, going around, skirting around I think it was the east side of the rock pile. And we were supposed to be backup demolition if they needed us. And they took fire. Well, of course, the ARVN's reaction to fire was, hide, call the helicopter. And so we were stuck, and, there's a little fire going on back and forth and stuff, and we found us a pretty good safe spot behind a bunch of big rocks, where we could hang out, and, once in a while you'd hear a little plunk or ping, and we're getting pretty bored, there were probably a dozen Americans, the rest ARVNs, and one of the guys looked at us and said, "Man, anybody got a joint?" "No." "Scotty, I got a bag of weed." I had been on R&R in Hawaii and had come back with cigarette papers, banana and strawberry and plain, and mint, because I knew the Vietnamese loved mint. They love menthol. And so they threw me. We were all right as long as we stayed where we were. We all had safe spots, a few yards apart. Right? They threw the bag of weed over to me, and I rolled up joints and threw them back to everybody. And so we got to hang out a few hours. The helicopters did their thing. A couple tanks finally rolled up. And, all right, ARVNs are going to leave. You guys can go back home, And we got back to the rear area, and Scotty held a big ceremony and gave me the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry for joint rolling under fire. One of my proudest moments.
There you go.
Is there a actual ribbon for that?
I had it for a long time on the hat that the Marines gave me, and some unscrupulous rymph stole it while I was taking one of the few showers that I ever had.
Another one.
Yeah.
Excuse me?
We'll have to make you another one.
Oh, well, I'd have to look it up, but it was the Vietnamese Cross of Gallantry.
Got it.
So I want to talk about something real quick that I don't think I've covered in the past, and that's, you had mentioned that you had to basically convince yourself that you were already dead in order for you to do your job.
Yeah.
So that way you could just concentrate on what's going on.
Absolutely.
So psychologically, how did that change when you found out you were a short timer, when you found out you were 30 days to going home?
Oh, it got really strange.
I mean, did you still have the same mindset? It doesn't matter, I'm dead?
Oh, well, I knew I was dead. You don't change that part or your job goes away. But, the anxiety starts to set in. When you get down there to what they call a 2-digit midget,
Yeah.
when you're under 100 days, 90 days or so, you start getting short and you start looking at that possibility. And at first, you try to put it out of your mind. Put it out of your mind. Don't think that way. You'll get your ass shot. You won't be thinking of your job. Don't do that, Well, I got down to about 2 months. Of course, I'm still walking minesweeper con to end, which is pretty good hazardous duty. Out of frustration, I painted with white paint on my flak jacket. Clean kill, please. That's all I could think of, Geez, clean kill, please. Just take, if you're going to take me out, do me a headshot.
Yeah.
Take me out, And, because I didn't want to be all fucked up like some of the guys I'd seen,
Sure.
I had one guy near me got wounded with shrapnel in his hand at nighttime because you can't see shit. You don't know what's going on. Didn't have fucking bandages or nothing. All I could think of was I had a pack of cocoa in my pack, and I knew that powdered milk would coagulate. And so I dumped the cocoa in his hand, and I held his hand until the chopper came. And I remember, Dave saying to me, "Man, why are you holding my hand?" I said, "I got to hold your hand, you bleed." And a minute later, "What the fuck are you doing holding my hand?" He was in shock, His hand was split in half, pretty much. But that cocoa stopped it, made it coagulate. And I held it tight. And when the chopper got there, the medic came out, and he just wrapped that up. He said, "What the fuck you got on his hand?" "Cocoa." "Good."
Yeah.
He got a Purple Heart for that.
So you finish out last day.
Like I say, the anxiety got. We smoked pot a lot, but it got to the point where I would have the dry heaves, knowing I had to walk minesweeper, scared shitless. I started doing a little ball of opium in the morning, like Percogesic, to keep my stomach settled down, so I could handle going out on minesweep, cut down the anxiety. It wasn't enough to fuck me up,
Right.
Get a good buzz.
And you're what, 18, 19?
18. I'm still 18. Damn. I celebrated I turned 19 hiding behind a rock.
Wow.
That was when I got the joint rolling under fire thing.
Yeah.
It was my birthday. I spent my birthday hiding behind a rock. Didn't think of it too much at the time. I was just laughing about it. Well, here I am, here I am, about 1 kilometer from Laos,
Right.
1 kilometer from the DMZ. Boy, this is as far out in the woods as you can get.
Yeah.
And yes, we went into Laos when Nixon said we weren't in Laos.
Yeah, I figured we did.
Yeah, we were there all the time.
Yeah, Laos, Cambodia, and all those. Yeah,
we were there all the time.
Yeah. So you get back, and I would imagine it would almost be as big of a shock coming back as it would be going there, just because, y'all called it the world. You're coming back to the world, and then all of a sudden everything's different. Yeah. And I would imagine a lot had changed in a year.
Oh, gosh.
Well,
I think the most striking thing for most of us was that you come back and they run you through an airport, and you're there in this airport, and you've been out in the jungle eating dirt, living like shit. And the reason why we do this is so everybody back here can have their normal life. But when you see them, like I said, they're walking through the airport, they got their skis, their racket, and they look over at you, and they're holding back from spitting on you.
Yeah.
If they are at all, look at you in disgust, oh God, hey, don't wear that uniform out in public. We're going out to see friends. Put your civvies on. You got treated bad. I got turned down for jobs because I was a combat vet. Shell Oil knew about PTSD way before the Army admitted it.
Yeah.
And the guy just looked me dead in the eye and said, "Oh, you're a combat vet. You ain't gonna last."
So how long did that negativity last, though? Years or just a short time? Or did it go on till the 80s or what?
Roger Barnes, are you talking about the public?
Yeah, just the negativity that you guys had to face coming back.
Well, I'll tell you what, until Mr. Donald Trump come along and started making the troops popular again in this country.
Wow, so you're saying it lasted that long?
Yeah.
Damn.
Because, after, Desert Storm guys got treated a little bit better,
Mm-hmm.
it was getting better all the time. The military realized they had done the wrong thing by treating us like shit and chastised the whole deal about drug-crazed Vietnam vets going to kill everybody. The government created that whole thing on purpose, so that no one would believe the truth about what was happening when we came back. Oh, they don't know what's going on. They're all too fucked up, Well, yeah, plenty of people were doing drugs, It was there. The Army would give you speed to keep you up.
Right.
You could buy speed in the village. You could buy downers. You could buy, whatever you wanted.
Yeah.
But,
interesting, I watched a documentary about a week ago, and it was about World War II. And I didn't know this before, but did you know that most of the German soldiers during World War II were on meth? I mean, they were meth heads, man, bad.
Amphetamine.
Can you imagine that shit?
That's what the whole
a
deal
bunch of meth heads running after you with guns?
What do you think
Blitzkrieg.
Blitzkrieg's all about?
Man.
SS troops in Blitzkrieg. Here, we'll get them wound up on speed. We found sappers. Sappers, enemy engineers. That, get through the barbed wire.
Okay.
They'd be out there in nothing but their underwear. And they'd have 2 or 3 syringes taped to their arm full of heroin. If they got wounded, we'd give them a pop.
Wow. So
And
they're
to
already
keep
rigged
on
up,
crawling.
ready
They
to go.
might have their leg blown off and the knee down. They got a satchel charge in the other hand. They're still crawling at your ass.
They're already rigged up and ready to go.
They're taped in their arm, ready to go. We find them like that.
Nothing going to stop those guys.
Damn.
What are you gonna? What do you do about that? You blow them to pieces.
Yeah.
That's what you do. The enemy soldier is not human. It's
Right.
not even an animal. It's the enemy. That's all it is. Anyone who thinks differently, they're gonna have huge problems.
Yeah.
Henry V, St. Crispian's Day, the eve, when Henry V goes out into the encamp, sits around the fire with the old sergeant, old pistol, he calls him. And he asks him, said, "Man, aren't you worried and upset and concerned about, the murder and mayhem, the hacking of limbs that will go on tomorrow?" And of course, he's out in the camp, supposedly incognito, but the old sergeant knows who he is. He says, "Oh, no. None of this is my doing at all. If I had not been asked by God, King, and Country to answer the call, I would be home with my wife in bed." And so the next day, he said, "This is all upon the king, on his soul only." And next day is when he gives the original greatest motivational speech ever given, the St. Crispian's Day speech. "We few, we proud, happy few, bear your arms on this day for all time, for all to see, the scars you earned." And
Wow.
so that's how I feel about that. People who looked at it differently thought it was their responsibility. Please, guys, it's not your fault. You did not do that. Your body was there participating. You survived. Be proud. You served your king and country. It is upon their soul.
That's awesome.
Shakespeare.
I like it. Well, Mark,
I knew that then. I knew that then.
Yeah. I'm glad I had you on the podcast, man. It's been good. So, and I hope to do it again.
Well, that was kind of interesting.
I know it was
for
a
me,
long drive for you to come out here, and I appreciate that. I hope the accommodations were good.
Can I acknowledge a few things while I'm here? I wanted to honor my father.
Okay, let's do that.
I have a couple of photographs here.
Just hold them up in the camera, get them
When
good.
he was very young, my age when I went in, this is Ross C. Seekins as a second lieutenant, when he was going in weather school
Cool.
in the Army. And he became a hero in World War II, was one of MacArthur's bright and shining boys, battlefield commission, decorated at the White House, retired a colonel. His brother died in Okinawa. He arrived on Okinawa with already 2 Purple Hearts and 2 Bronze Stars, died leading a charge.
Wow. Big salute there.
Well, that was the heritage I grew up to. This is what you do.
Right.
So
Big shoes to fill.
that's just part of it. That's part of it. That was the environment. The world. It was very different. You have my next door neighbor, complete pacifist, no concept at all of the military. Neighbor on the other side, knew all about it.
Yeah.
But in the military world, many of us learned that, whether we like it or not, that's part of the world we live in. Human beings are mean motherfuckers.
Oh, yeah.
They will kill each other.
That's right.
And, if you're going to have an army, it's better to have it full of people who can do their job,
I agree.
So I wanted to honor my father on that because I never liked him. He was my dad. He was a tough-ass, brown shoe military son of a gun. But
but it's that hard upbringing that enabled you to sit here and talk with me today.
Well,
that's a good thing.
Training, that and environment. I went for a long time. When like I said, when I first came back, I got turned down for jobs because I was a combat vet. Old friend of mine told me one day, he said, "Man, just don't tell them that anymore." First time I didn't, I got hired.
Wow.
People did not want to be reminded of it. It was shameful,
Sure,
hurtful, because it was a black spot in American history.
It took a long time for popular culture to come around to anything sympathetic toward the Vietnam vet. And my experience would be probably the first time that I noticed it as a 14 or 15-year-old was the movie Coming Home with John Voight. Illustrated a lot of what he went through.
Yeah.
And because I had to watch it again in my 20s to really understand it. But took a while to get there. But thank you very much.
Well,
appreciate your service.
The first time I heard anyone say thank you for your service was almost exactly 30 years after I got back. And I was stunned. I was stuck still. I couldn't believe that someone actually said that. I hardly knew how to react. And now I hear it, and many times someone will say that, and I'll tell them, "Look, I want you to know, it was 30 years before I heard that the first time."
Well,
but I got to tell you something. I would say, well, yeah, I got to say it, and a lot of people are going to curse me about it, but thank you, Donald Trump, for making the veteran a respectable person, because I drive back and forth to California every year to go gold panning, and I usually wear my hat. And right after Trump got in office, I'm driving along, I'm out there in New Mexico. I stop and get gas, and I go in and buy a cup of coffee, and they say, "Oh, no, sir, you can't pay for that. Thank you for your service, sir." Sir, I about fell over and died.
That's how it ought to be.
I couldn't believe it, Just, wow. All the way, all through Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, everywhere I went, I could hardly buy a cup of coffee in a store. Just thank you. Young guys, 18-year-old, walk up to you in Walmart. "Thank you for your service, sir. I'm thinking about going in the military." Just wow, blown away by this.
It's cool.
30 years and nothing like that. Got to California. I went down to Grass Valley where old Moonbeam Jerry lives, to a little sandwich shop I used to go to back in the 60s and 70s. I swear, wearing this hat, I went in, and you could see people look and go quiet. California.
Yeah.
It was almost like it scared them. I thought it was funny. So I went back up in the mountains over 2,000 feet elevation where social distancing is pistol range.
Yeah. Well, Mark, it was good having you on today, too. And
it was fantastic. I really appreciate the invitation, and we definitely need to have a part 2.
Yeah, I think so.
Because I've got more stuff I'd like to throw at you.
Okay, cool. Sounds great.
Thank you very much.
No problem. And I hope to have you hosting some of your own stuff here, too. So, think about that. If you
the wheels are turning. But
yeah, if you want to have some guests on, go ahead and do it. Just
all right.
Yeah,
great.
That'll
Thank
be
you.
good, man. We'll have you on pretty often. All right, guys. If you haven't subscribed, I don't know why. Everybody else has. So you need to get on it. Hit that subscribe button. If you liked what you saw today, like it. Leave a couple comments for me and Mark. So that'd be great, especially for Mark Seekins. I know he'd like to see some comments down there. So if you guys got anything to say, if you want to thank him for his service, or maybe you knew him and maybe you met up with him in Vietnam or something, I don't know. Whatever the case might be. And also, guys, I'd like you to give Mark Hogan a warm welcome on co-hosting with me today. I think it was really good, and we're going to do it again. So see you in the next one. We'll be in touch, and we out.